Randomly start. it, Tobias? 胡家春，嗨，胡家春。
It's never-ending heart attacking, but I'm not backing out of this thing. It's so warming, so enticing.
Good evening, everyone. How are you today? Welcome to watching my first experience podcast at FoMO Radio. Do you guys find the website designed by Nadim and Bus? This is a shared campus event for our group of 3 people. We'll have parallel performing in a website, um, which we have me will represent Slacker's Love, Fitz Anouchka, a guest performer. I will introduce her later. And we have Rose Lee at the same time in the website performing. And also Dr. is representing Fiona Lee in the Hong Kong BO study port. So actually it's quite interesting to see 3 performing at the same time on one website, a window. So it's quite experimental experience, and I hope you enjoy that. Okay, so let me have a little bit introduce my podcast, Slacker's Love. So let's see how we need and care and desire. The love provided by technology make us have each other. That sounds like you are swiping on Tinder to find your potential lover or peeping at your ex-girlfriend on Instagram. What make you recently feel happy? A shushu-tone dress you covet from the virtual Shanghai Fashion Week 2020? A jelly alien filter mask represented by your favorite KOL from your phone camera? Or a handcraft deer from the dark forest delivered from Berlin to your house? What makes you recently feel down? A wrong spelling Shanghai bag bought from Taobao? A video phone call from you but rejected by your boyfriend? Or a failed to get a date experience on a TV show? There is only one step from love to hate. What we see love today is like a slacker thing. The capitalist flowing emotionally liquefy to the commercialization of love. Maybe like the lyrics from J. Charles' song. Can you give me a time for a song? Tightly make that hug forever. Can you give me a time for a song to hear the story to the end before you say goodbye? Well, it's time to celebrate our incapable of love. So today we will have a schedule for these 3 hours podcast. So I want to introduce an important person to join my podcast Slackers Love, which is Anouchka. So about Anouchka, Anouchka is a curator, researcher, and innovation lead based in Beijing. She has been active in China's creative sector for over a decade, collaborating with cultural organizations on curatorial projects. She also runs People's Work, a platform of social innovation as part of the architecture studio, People's Architecture Office. Her research and curatorial projects focus on the social effect and implications of design across the disciplinary spectrum. Recent exhibitions including social design. So I will. She's currently have a research in M plus. Actually, she won the M plus Design Trust Fellowship. So she studied China and the cosmetic techniques of fashion. So fashion globally manifests itself as a visual language and culture, as well as a social practice, constantly redefined and rehabbed through a social interaction. Technology, as in all aspects of contemporary living, has an increased impact on the social realm, especially in today's China and its fashion landscape. Deploying techno-philosopher Yokho's concept of cosmetics as a lens to frame recent developments in fashion sector in China. Her research investigates the changing dynamics between designers and users, consumers, through the highly mediated relationships of online platforms and their impact on the design, creation, marketing, the consumption of garments and clothing, including the surrounding social phenomenon of style. Moreover, the research explores the economics impact on the fashion industry of coronavirus 19 pandemic, which is also acceleratively changed already in the motion, effect a new form of deglobalization production. So my guest performer Anouchka will have a performance at 8 o'clock. So now I would like to show you the timetable for tonight now.
My vision is fading, really hard to ignore. This feeling that's invading inside my own mind. I'm flawed completely. Won't you take up the blind so I can see?
Hello, we are coming back. Okay, so now start from 7:30 to 8:30. I will have a reading about Brian Cohn Wood's essay, Is It Love? And then after the reading, I will play some music track of our master of Mandarin song god, Jay Chou. And then I will play the music of the album The Slacker's Guide to Love. And finally, I will introduce a story from Bruno Zhu, Cool for the Summer. Bran Kun Wu, Is It Love? And peers that cannot observe one another in meaning effects go backward and forward, and there is no place. Lisa Robinson, Palinotus. No one lives in the future. No one lives in the past. The men who own the city make more sense than we do. Their actions are clear. Their lives are their own. But you went being glass. Gone or fall. Is it love? Over the past few decades, it has often been said that we no longer have an address for our political demands. But that's not true. We have each other. What we can no longer get from the state, the party, the union, the boss, we ask for from one another. And we provide. Lacan famously defined love as giving something you don't have to someone who doesn't want it. But love is more than a YouTube link or a URL. This is beautiful negative flip of what is commonly considered the most positive force in the universe helps us begin to see love's fullness and endless bounty. As space in emptiness and lake, in Motrolos, love's joy is not to be found in fulfillment, but the recognition, even though I can never return what was taken away from you, I may be the only person alive who know what it is. I don't have what it is you're missing, but knowing its shape already makes a world where you can live without it. Now it becomes easy to see how love translates to economic term as a union based in mutual debt. When the debt is paid off or called in, the union deserves, and now that pretty much everyone is in debt, love abounds. Professionals are moving back in with their parents. People are returning home to their countries to depend on their extended families. Contracts are increasingly backed by person relationships, and even the value of goods and currencies are backed less by bond and legal tender and more by the trust and intimacy that gives them their character. Shared associations, affinities expressed over communication lines produce pockets of enormous value in an otherwise lonely ocean of random data streams. Musicians record ream of songs without ever thinking about wanting a record contract from major labels that are still struggling to understand how to make money off computer files. Musicians produce music for pure communication now. Information and communication turns immaterial economic into superstition and affective projections. Capital differs down to pure communication and what used to be an idea of the collective has become a force of conviviality in the absolute. Information drive overstimulation and actual improvement may have fallen in love with each other as well, and they shake up together on an employed person's Facebook page. Now that we live a constant slump, what used to be called biopolitics has been accelerated to the degree that it starts to line up with older pre-capitalist and pre-mercantile means of stabilizing exchanges. Why, after all, do you think there is so much talk about feudalism these days? And how did you suddenly get so many friends that you don't even like? Where do you think we got all the bromance films, Hollywood romantic comedies on platonic love between immature men with nothing in common, who are nonetheless forced to improve difficult circumstances by forming bond of intimacy and solidarity? Neighborhood currencies appear, not only in places like Greece, to keep goods and services moving when the money system breaks down. The currency could be a stone or a handshake. It doesn't matter and doesn't even have to be a material when it's backed by bonds of trust, by family love, or by friendship. All that is capital melts into love. Love is mostly recently introduced member in the family of inflection and bloat. It is a burst of fresh air fed straight into the bubble. It gives the bouncy scheme at least another decade before people start to think about cashing out. Remember when you would run out of time and replace that with energy? Push a little harder and move a little faster, and you can trick time. Because, darling, you are a superhero. But when you run out of time and energy alike, you run into a problem. You need help, you need support, you need love and a bit of tenderness. Now, with the help of others, you can feed the machine again. Without time and energy of your own, love is conduit through which you extract the time and energy of others. You then start to take the shape of that loving conduit, but you have also become a professional lover or a diabolically good flirt. You are a kind of Marilyn Monroe or Don Juan in the labor of other Marilyns and Dons. These arrangements actually makes for a beautifully collective endeavor. So so long as you can stay beautiful, tender, and kind to your lovers, and so long as they stay that way to you, this tenderness is a force of resynchronization. Maybe it is a new kind of force altogether. Maybe it is time. Let's inhale and exhale together. Love is in this sense not an elevated romantic phenomenon, but the economization of empathy. Love is immaterial capital. in the absolute inner sphere of value relations where capital and labor are no longer the main operators or arbiters of value. As unfixed capital summons higher and higher symbolic registers into the arena of exchange, its increasing abstraction puts it constantly on the pause for a low base of peg value too. But we now find ourselves in a moment where the situation has taken hold to the point where we are no longer really talking about value in an economic sense, but rather about how to sustain meaning in its most fundamental Semitic and ontological sense. And this meaning is provided by the base level foundations for life and for identification, for solidarity, or for support in, in reproductive and affective relations, from children birth to friendship. There is also an idea that solidarities between people within the sphere of capital are capable of compensating for the inequities produced by capital, and that this constitutes a kind of expansion to the economy within it. But in fact, these solidarities are the very essence of what regulates the flows of value and compensate for its inconsistencies through promises, favors, the handshake or the hand drop, kisses and compliments cost nothing and mean everything, like the phrase sweet nothing to describe lovers whisper to each other. It is not through the nothing, but the sweet that semiotics becomes material when plucking the strings of the heart. Love abounds on information networks. Like a home, every inbox is a cacophony of emotions, of simple pressures, see things, frustrations, of conditional support and permanent disavowals, of silent treatment and gushing confessions. It is through bonds of solidarity that all the things that cannot be registered and accounted for, because they are irrational and errant and ill-defined subsequent interactions, find their place either due to tolerance or an ability to codify, or both. In this sense, what I'm talking about is a broad in the sphere of mutual solidarities, a bubble that is no longer economic but will only burst as an aneurysm or an uprising. Its effects will not be registered according to any language so far understood as being within the realm of economic. Even its marks did give us a premonition in his closing lines of the power of money. Let us assume man to be man, and his relation to the world to be a human one. Then love can only be exchanged for love, trust for trust, etc. If you wish to enjoy art, you must be an artistically cultivated person. If you wish to influence other people, you must be a person who really has a stimulating and encouraging effect upon others. Every one of your relations to men and to nature must be a specific expression corresponding to the object of your will, of real individual life. If you love without invoking love in return, i.e., if you are not able by the manifestation of yourself as a loving person to make yourself a beloved person, then your love is impotent and misfortune. When, when in love, giving and receiving have no calculus. They have they have infinite supply and demand, just as in lovemaking, giving pressure and receiving pressure are indistinguishable from each other to the extent that they are in fact no different. Meanwhile, care labor, raising children, and all these so-called labors of love make public service and private interests swirled around the mesh, giving and receiving pressure and love. The question of love is phantom that hangs over the question of work. It is both a radicalization of concept of work by way of meshing it with life, with or without the creative class promises, but also what comes after work, at the end of the workday, on the one hand, but also when there's no jobs and people have to make do by sharing their skills with each other. An employed member of family is usually expected to care for sick relatives or babysit. Their occupation is to love, and it's always a lot of work. Here, love becomes a figure of total depletion, even a Catholic figure of giving oneself away to the point of exhaustion and humiliating defeat. We look a mess because we have given our love in the absolute to the absolute. To have nothing left to give is to start looking like Christ on the cross. After passion, to help someone walk when they are not related to in social love. Many people remark on how teaching is a joy in itself. The shifting of labor into the private and domestic spheres is on one hand a relocation of resources from state or workplace into a private and personal sphere of the home. But with self-managed and free-floating labor, it is also marked by a soliding of troubles from the office or factory to the home, the marriage, the partner, the mind, the children. Every day is bring your kid to work day as well as never take a shower or change out of your fucking pajama day. Under the auspice of love, a generalized generosity from has emerged within the private and public sphere alike. So the family, the lover, the market, the street, a machine, or reciprocity now stretches horizontally from horizon to distant horizon across a flat landscape, converting labor into love, and love back into labor, love experiencing, converted to a curse, converted back to a promise. Let's have some music and get back to this essay.
我晒干了沉默，回得更冲动。就算这次做错，也只是怕错过。在一起找，分开了找，是不是说没有做完的梦绝头？迷路的后，我能承受这最后的出口，在爱过了才有。能不能给我一首歌的时间，紧紧的把那拥抱变成永远，在我的怀里你不用害怕失眠。哦，如果你想忘记我也能适应，能不能给我一首歌的时间，把故事听到最后才说再见。你所有的眼泪让它留在雨天，哦，越过你话提醒我定了勇气的终点。雨淋湿的天空，回来更讲究。你说你不懂我为何在这时牵手，我晒干了沉默，回来很冲动。就算这次做错，也只是怕错过。在一起找，分开了找，是不是说没有做完的梦绝头？迷路的后，我能承受这最后的出口，在爱过了才有。能不能给我一首歌的时间，紧紧的把那拥抱变成永远，在我的怀里你不用害怕失眠。哦，如果你想忘记我也能适应，能不能给我一首
話你知可以瞓住覺箍牙變靚嘅秘密呢？就係 Smile Direct Club 嘅夜間牙套啦。
告訴我你婚後的事宜，我與你已很久沒見面。網上看見一篇文章說，情侶分手後又相處依然，代表你是沒有愛意，或者愛意從沒有改變，但我卻更覺得適用於形容情侶分手以後從沒有再見。我會在 IG 看你一生的轉變，在 IG 等你 BB 的出現。星期天見你留搞到山邊，晚上與你姊妹的合照片，偶爾也會見到他露面，與你遊歷的異國景點。時光飛逝，如幻似煙，何時先可以停止懷緬？Was a sign, as was sign。你與我唯一的接觸點，是我形容你偏好買書在誠品店，像非如此不可的德國語言，埋藏在貝多芬的四重奏經典裡面。
Essentially, both blur into an expressive force with seemingly no addressing in established political structure or aesthetic regimes, and whose underside is a depletion so cruel that we can only cry ourselves to sleep at night. It is perverse advancement of romantic project as a concretization of romance. The Romantic era was a surge of energy released by the potential of an era of revolutions in the late 18th and 19th centuries. Today, we live in a similar era, but now the energy has no address and is extracted under the auspice of a liberation that no one really believes in. As capital cancels itself, differences in value do not just go away. The management and regulation of those differences don't go away either. Negotiations within those differences assume the term of exchange, which is to say they reflect them and reinforce them, producing and reproducing them. We are really in a time of hyper paradox, where sign value and use value converge and slips and converge again too fast for money to even make sense. Every price mechanism of faulted Marxists or the boards darkest warnings about capital and spectacle and price speculation are a decent but ultimately grooming manual for understanding the way things are. Even its neoliberal economics of the Chicago School are the architects of this condition. They themselves have a hard time explaining what is happening without the help of an astrologist or meteorologist or shaman. If this means the eventual and complete death of economics only be replaced by love, the transition might be bumpy at first, but it won't be such a bad thing in the long run. Of course, this regime change will be disastrous for many relationships, but how can we complain when you are witnessing and facing out of work and its replacement of by friends? Maybe you thought you were still looking at contemporary art, but actually art left the building quite a while ago, and the artist is almost mostly using the real estate to work a hectic production job of stabilizing an image of career trajectory in the absence of any social and art historical one. Today, it has become disturbingly easy to confuse stress and exhaustion with love. This be attributed to the sheer amount of energies being exchanged. They prey upon emotional responses, and only in recent years have we learned that we are no longer talking about work or labor capture, but about the distribution of vital energies that surpass the calculus of both. While some of these energies are politically beneficial or monetized of ancillary or surprising ways, the physics of application doesn't really account for how much energy is poured into forms of political or lyrical expression out of love of fun of idleness or pathological commitment, that is, without asking for anything in return. There may be a whole other side to the situation that we have only started to ascertain through the political uprising of recent years, where a form of political commitment gets displaced onto the expressive sphere. Much has been written about the role of images and blogging in these movements. Well, most of us know that what a poor user interface this forms for negotiating the common, which has changed so radically that the very location of the common itself has probably shifted elsewhere. Well, there is a great deal to look forward to in this fact alone. The dislocation in terms of side of objective had left so many people vulnerable to forms of pathological commitment that can risk coming unhung from their political objectives and ultimately consume the people themselves. We are forced into these situations to consider how solidarity works of surpass structural limits by bonds of trust and reciprocity, but also about the stresses placed back on those every solidarities when a structure is so bankrupt that it can only permanently really upon informal generosities for its basic vital functions. This is to say that love is both the problem and the solution, and to emerging form of hyperactive, supercommitted self-application that surpasses logics of exploitation and labor extraction, because no one is really benefiting from the added value when it evaporates under the auspices of love and dedication. We might also be looking in the wrong places, because things do not only evaporate when they enter the expressive sphere, but are also catalogized and achieved by the NASA, achieved by the NSA. Sorry, I just saw this NASA. By museums, any other structure dedicated to historical memory and surveillance alike. A pathological commitment that differs to the expressive sphere when it hits a political impasse has to then contend with the politics of artistic form in order for it to hold together. The language of the form is increasingly being defined by its ability to access emotional registers. This is probably why we are finding so many people in the arts who are essentially activists continuing their work in the absence of any concrete political horizon, but who also become the meantime the most beautiful singers in the tradition of Bears or Omnicontum, but simply expression of the fullness of being have moved from the structural to the symbolic and emotional registers. One of the most widely read texts speaking to this is not coincidentally by Plato, who brought us define the rational love. But Plato is all about using word play to starts of love, and it is also about using seduction of inspired wordplay, which leads to a semitonically inspired madness. You master a text not by solidifying its internal logic structure, but by knowing and loving your audience, even to the point where, as you can convince them to want to sleep with you. Rock and roll figure this one out a long time ago. Okay, now let's play some music for our master Mandarin god, Jay Chou.
想要有直升机，想要和你飞到宇宙去，想要和你融化在一起，融化在雨里。我每天每天每天在想着你，这样的甜蜜让我开始相信命运，感谢你吸引力，让我碰到你。漂亮的让我面红的可爱女人，温柔的让我心疼的可爱女人，聪明的让我感动的可爱女人，坏的让我疯狂的可爱女人，漂亮的让我面红的可爱女人，温柔的让我心疼的可爱女人，聪明的让我感动的可爱女人，坏的让我疯狂的可爱女人。想要有直升机，想要和你飞到宇宙去，想要和你融化在一起，融化在雨里。我每天每天每天在想着你，这样的甜蜜让我开始相信命运，感谢你吸引力，让我碰到你。漂亮的让我面红的可爱女人，温柔的让我心疼的可爱女人，聪明的让我感动的可爱女人，坏的让我疯狂的可爱女人，漂亮的让我面红的可爱女人，温柔的让我心疼的可爱女人，聪明的让我感动的可爱女人，坏的让我疯狂的可爱女人。世界这样大，我只是只剩下但我要尽全力全力保护你。漂亮的让我面红的可爱女人，温柔的让我心疼的可爱女人，聪明的让我感动的可爱女人，坏的让我疯狂的可爱女人，让我面红的可爱女人，温柔的让我心疼的可爱女人，聪明的让我感动的可爱女人，坏的让我疯狂的可爱女人，让我面红的老心的可爱女人，聪明的让我感动的可爱女人，坏的让我疯狂的可爱女人，漂亮的让我面红的可爱女人，温柔的让我心疼的可爱女人，聪明的让我感动的。 果说分离能够翻译，如果这一切真的可以，我想要将我的寂寞封闭，然后在这里不写日记，然后将过去慢慢温习，让我爱上你那场悲剧，是你完美演出的一场戏。你有心事哭泣，才会忘记你爱过我的证据，让记忆的泪滴闪烁成唯一伤人的美丽。你的完美主义太彻底，让我连根都难以下笔，将真心抽离写成日记，像是一场默剧。你的完美主义太彻底，分手的我像语言暴力，我已无能为力再提起，决定东成熟悉。在这里不写日记，然后将过去慢慢温习，让我爱上你那场悲剧，是你完美演出的一场戏。你连心事哭泣，才会忘记你爱过我的证据，让记忆的泪滴闪烁成唯一伤人的美丽。你的完美主义太彻底，让我连根都难以下笔，将真心抽离写成日记，像是一场默剧。你的完美主义太彻底，分手的我像语言暴力，我已无能为力再提起，决定东成熟悉。成你的形状，随风跟着我，一口一口吃掉忧愁。载着你，仿佛载着阳光，不管到哪里都是晴天。蝴蝶自在飞，花也布满天，一朵一朵因你而香。试图让夕阳飞上，带领你我环绕大自然， 的风，开始共度每一天。手牵手，一步两步三步四步望着天，看星星一颗两颗三颗四个连成线。每天每我们许下心愿，看远方的星是否听得见。手牵手，一步两步三步四步望着天，看星星一颗两颗三颗四个连成线。每天每我们许下心愿，看远方的星，如果听得见，它一定实现。
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Slackers Love, represented by Tulang, and this is at FoMO Radio. So now the time is bit running fast. I just realized. So I haven't finished the story from Bruno Drew, The Cool for Summer. So I will do it after the conversation with Anouchka around 9. So after maybe 9:30, we'll have Cool for the Summer, Bruno Drew. So I would have a so Anouchka gonna have a performance at 8:30, so it's coming soon, about 5 minutes soon. Again, I would like to introduce Anouchka again. Anouchka is Beijing-based curator and researcher, currently in research of China and cosmotechnics of fashion. Anouchka, she has been active in China and creative sector for over decades, collaborating with cultural organizations on curatorial projects. And she recently looking at techno philosopher Yohoi's concept of cosmetics as a lens to frame recent development of fashion sector in China. Her research investigates the changing dynamics. Changing dynamics. So we will have her soon. Now I'm trying to contact her.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Anouchka.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. I just
Hello.
has a very short introduction for you. For introduce
Okay.
you. So now let's see. Yay! Our pretty Anouchka is here now. Welcome,
Good.
Anouchka.
Okay. I'm live now. Oh no. Oh no.
Brilliant.
It's my first time live on YouTube, I think. I was live on
Me too.
I was live on yeah. I was live on WeChat before doing a live stream, basically joining a live stream organized at the time by K11. It was quite funny actually.
Yeah.
A lot of like giveaways and things while we were discussing things about design. It's kind of funny.
It's kind of so funny. Actually, I get a little bit get into it now. Maybe I will be a YouTuber. It's kind of funny. Yeah. So I think let's have start now with your sharing. Yeah.
Sure.
Because I have a short introduction. And then everyone, yeah. So everyone know Anouchka now. She's brilliant researcher and curator. So let's do it. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Lang. So my idea today is also a little bit to do a bit of reading or excerpt some readings from the research that I've been doing. And the research is still very much a work in progress. Today I had a midterm review basically, which was interesting. Actually, it was a very interesting conversation. So yeah, though I saw that you actually did a lot of reading. So I'm sorry, listeners, if you're tired of reading, but this is what you'll get. Otherwise, you can, grab a seat or just slack down and maybe kind of doze away if you like. Let me start. Let me first also list what I'll go through. I guess what Lang and I connected over was a little bit kind of the text of Yukhui on cosmotechnics. And so I'll start with a few excerpts from that. Then for my research, I'm looking quite broadly, but one part that I will focus on is kind of the work of different Chinese designers as it relates to online culture, platformization, etc. So I'll actually I'll present the work of two designers by reading their collection statements from this season, and each show a bit of video of them that I'm just sourcing from online. So I'll share my screen. And maybe for the reading even, I'll share my screen if that's okay, because I don't like looking at myself or seeing myself. But I'll pop in and out if that's okay. So let's see. You have to enable screen sharing. It's okay, no worries. Genuine parts, genuine accessories. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's right.
It's okay now.
Let's see. Yes. Okay.
Yay.
Share. Yes. I'm just doing this. Okay. It seems incapable of moving forward or even backward. I believe that there is an urgent need to envision and develop a philosophy of technology in China for both historical and political reasons. China has modernized itself over the past century in order to catch up with the UK and outstrip the US. Chao Ying Ti Mei, I think, right? A slogan proposed by Mao Zedong in 1957. Now it seems to be at a turning point, its modernization having reached a level that allows China to situate itself among the great powers. But at the same time, there is a general sentiment that China cannot continue with this blind modernization. The great acceleration that has taken place in recent decades has also led to various forms of destruction, cultural, environmental, social, and political. We are now sociologically geologists tell us, living in a new epoch, that of the Anthropocene, which began roughly in the 18th century with the Industrial Revolution. Surviving the Anthropocene will demand reflection upon and transformation of the practices inherited from the modern in order to overcome modernity itself. Here is my hypothesis, one which may appear rather surprising to some readers. In China, techniques in the sense we understand it today, or at least as it is defined by certain European philosophers, never existed. There is a general misconception that all techniques are equal, that all skills and artificial products coming from all cultures can be reduced to one thing called technology. And indeed, it is almost impossible to deny that techniques can be understood as the extension of the body or the exteriorization of memory. Yet they may not be perceived or reflected upon in the same way in different cultures. And techniques thus understood as an ontological category must be interrogated in relation to a larger configuration, a cosmology proper to the culture from which it emerged. The misconception that techniques can be considered as some kind of universal remains a huge obstacle to understand the global technological condition in general, and in particular the challenge it poses to non-European cultures. But if such a response to technology and capitalism is applied globally as if Prometheus were a universal cultural figure, it risks perpetuating a more subtle form of colonialism. In assuming a universal Prometheanism, one assumes that all cultures arise from techne, which is originally Greek. But in China, we find another mythology concerning the creation of human beings and the origin of techniques, one in which there is no Promethean figure. It tells instead of three ancient emperors who were leaders of ancient tribes, Fuxi, Nua, and Shennu. Scientific and technical thinking emerges under cosmological conditions that are expressed in the relations between humans and their milieus, which are never static. For this reason, I would like to call this conception of techniques cosmotechnics. The concept of cosmotechnics immediately provides us with a conceptual tool with which to overcome the conventional opposition between techniques and nature, and to understand the task of philosophy as that of seeking and affirming the organic unity of the two. Some recent work has suggested that close consideration of non-Western cultures, since it demonstrates a pluralism of ontologies and cosmologies, indicates a way out of the modern predicament. Okay, that's, let's see, stop share. That's as far as I got in terms of my excerpting on that part. But it kind of like gives a little bit of background on, some of the reading and the background to the work that I'm investigating, basically in terms of designers, output, etc. Anyway, next case that I will highlight is a reading from Windowsen. No, wait, I'm doing private policy first, sorry. Here we go. And I will also again share the screen and read from the screen, which I like to do. Here we are. So private policy is actually, it's a very new Chinese fashion brand. They established themselves in New York, but work between New York and Shanghai now. Basically founded by two Chinese designers of Chinese origin. What's interesting about them is that they actually, each collection, they select a kind of social issue to underline and basically to inform the collection. And very much that social issue comes out of social media and things that are discussed online. For my reading, or kind of for the reading here, I will basically read their collection statement, which is very long, actually, in an interesting case. Anyway, I will just read, okay, yeah, anyway, we'll read it. We Remember You, Tales About the Ghost of Gold Mountain, Fall, Winter 2021. Imagine the Wild West of America in the 1800s, a grand landscape of mountain, desert, and valley, ragged mine workers and cowboys. Opportunities like the raw gold awaits in the land. In the iconic Americana picture, rarely anyone would think of a Chinese immigrant in humble clothes, seemingly quite mannered, full of hope and ambition in his eyes. In fact, there were hundreds of thousands of them in the picture and made their mark. They traveled on U.S. mail ships from late Qing Dynasty China's Pearl River Delta area for the Gold Mountain or the Gold Rush. Despite the expensive yet terrible cross-ocean journey for months, it was an opportunity to provide their family a better life. Among them, tens of thousands Chinese men were employed to build the Transcontinental Railroad, which is one of the most crucial milestones for the United States bicoastal and international trade development. From being perceived as physically weak, strange outsiders, even speculated as untrustworthy and ill-intentioned, to become the irreplaceable and respected railroad workers who awed the railroad company and Washington with their resilience and agility. They made the railroad possible through a few feet tall snowfall, high Sierras mountains no one would attempt, danger of tunnel explosive, and extreme isolation. Unfortunately, regardless of the Chinese railroad workers' remarkable contribution, the general xenophobia and prejudice against Chinese immigrants were strong because of the lack of detailed record or official recognition from the US government. Their stories were forgotten and left out of history books for many years. Their memories lived on by families down generations, and thanks to the incredible researches done by historians like Gordon H. Chang at Stanford University. The 19th century Chinese railroad workers' epic stories were brought to light in the 21st century. For the 2021 Fall-Winter collection, Private Policy wants to highlight this important historical achievement. While the COVID-19 pandemic stirred hatred and xenophobia and led to violence and insults against Chinese communities globally, instead of escape and hide, people were speaking up about past and ongoing racism, prejudice against Asian immigrants, especially the young generation, won't let the microaggression and defiantly not the oblivion and injustice continue. Private Policy chose the story of Chinese railroad workers not to complain, but declare existence and convey pride for the immigrant 4 generations phenomenal attribution. Combining Western workwear with 19th century Chinese garment details by deconstruction was inspired by railroad workers' styling of layering and mix matching Eastern and Western clothing based on functionality, as seen in rare photographs remaining. Private Policy Fall-Winter 21 collection aims to capture the essence of their unique and utilitarian aesthetic. Also, the collection takes on a modern approach to traditional elements by reimagining Mandarin collar and knot buttons, incorporating PPNY 90s New York youth culture, continuing the signature soft harness and reshaped diner jacket checker PXL pattern. These elements seamlessly showcase the mesmerizing attitude and characteristics of the surprisingly swaggy railroad workers. Symbols are carefully selected and redesigned, such as the crane graphics, the iconic Chinese bird, which represents longevity, elegance, auspiciousness, loyalty, is portrayed in a new way. In the split moment of flying action and grabbing a flag, referencing the familiar imagery of American eagle and flag. For another example, the Not Now graphic is inspired by a quote from the famous indie art film Chan is Missing, 1982. We don't have wonton soup. We have wonton spelled backward, not now. It is a humorous line from a Chinese immigrant cook character who is frustrated with the lack of understanding of Chinese cuisine and mirroring the general lack of understanding, representation, and appreciation of the Asian American culture. Collaborating with the Museum of Chinese in America, who provided extensive research materials, there will be a special t-shirt design launch along with other events. Also, the Fall-Winter 21 lookbook photo shoot took place at the museum with a cast of diverse Chinese descendants sharing their unique stories and relations to their cultural roots. This collection means to become an educational introduction to spark more discovery and interest in the stories of the Chinese transcontinental railroad workers. Not now, and no longer will they be invisible. Even though covered in snow, blown away by sand, lost in time, we will look harder and remember the Chinese railroad workers and their epic tales. April 8, 2021, 9:30, Hall B, Tank number 5, 2380 Longtung Avenue, Xuhui District, Shanghai, which was where their show took place. Let me, how do I switch screens? Anyway, I'll share another screen now. Here is a glimpse. So they basically had their collection launch at Shanghai Fashion Week, but also on TikTok. And I'll show you some of the videos that are actually on their Instagram, which are kind of fun. But I don't know if you can, do you guys hear the music or not?
Yep, I heard the music. I can hear, but not very loud.
Sorry?
I can hear the sound.
Cannot hear the sound. Okay, I don't know.
I can hear, but not very,
Can. Oh, okay.
very loud.
Wow. Yeah, swear to God, I'm with it. I don't see nobody in my lane. It's quite go with it.
Okay. That was it for private policy. Now I go into my other case, which is WindowSyn. And again, I'll start with a reading from the collection, and then I have a video, but I only have it, basically, I'm on a VPN right now, but the video I have is on WeChat, so I'll kind of hold my phone up and see if that works. Then let me have a look. This one. And WindowSyn is a brand, basically the name, or it's by a designer called Sensen Lee. The name of the brand is derived from the Windows operating system and a name, which is kind of funny. But anyway, so I'll just read first. Transcending, oh wait, am I at the, I need to be at the end, here we go. Unplug yourself from the real world you are familiar with and imagine that new life forms from outer space have invaded your planet. They study us to craft a human disguise and behave accordingly. Hidden in public, they walk along us, slowly making us relinquish control. This is an intergalactic, transhuman, cyber figure and paradoxic reality. WindowSyn 2021 fall-winter has crafted for this season. And it's starting to overtake our common senses. Look at the people around you, the person you are talking to. Are they human or are you human since you are reading this? By natural selection, the senses and knowledge of extraterrestrials have evolved and enlarged to adapt to the otherworldly athletic abilities. The urge to change is called out. Sportswear's aesthetics and utility are upgraded to a whole new level, a perfect synchronization of beauty and the grotesque, the past and the future, the quotidian and high luxury. Black is the preferred color as seen in most of the looks. However, neon is adopted often for a pop-up surprise. In the world of WindowSyn, norms are erased, traditions are twisted. Being different is no longer demoralizing. It is not surprising to see the serpent-like sleeves, mega exaggerated platform heels, demon-like shoulders, shoulder silhouettes, and furry corsets sided with elastic lace-up, mixing mesh with sporty cordons. Transcending, walking down the hallway to where life was first discovered, they can easily replicate its own kind with no concern of the likes of gender and race. And just like that, the WindowSyn Barbie arrives and she's slowly waking up. Okay, and then I'll see if this works. It's actually a really cool video that they have basically for the couture collection this year. But let me see if I can get it to work.
Are you shivering too? Are you afraid? In fear of what might come your way? Don't be, please. Keep your eyes wide shut and heart wide open. There is a new world coming for us. And there is a new us stepping into it. Can you pass me the light? Would you keep me warm at night? Could you be the torch fire through the turmoil of this wonder life?
Okay. That was the end of the video. Sorry, long? Okay, that's the end of my kind of section.
All right. It's so cool actually. It's really really funny to see the video that's sorry, what's the brand name? I love it. Got lost.
The last one was Windowson, and the
Yeah,
first one was
Winterson. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yes. So I'm just wondering, who make that video for Wenderson?
Yeah, like there's usually a whole list of people involved in making these videos. Art direction, I see here Liu Di.
Okay.
Like there's a whole art director Liu Di, director Bailu, music and narration Rei Ho, film editing Liu Jiajun, makeup Valentina Li, hair Xu Youhui, Yu Youhua, and then a bunch of models listed also.
Wow. Yeah, I saw now currently in Chinese brand fashion trend got more and more active now. It's like very how to say, so because sometimes we thinking about design of China is a bit in the in a bit contradictory trend. Like some people said China have no design, but really there's some sort of like really brilliant young Chinese fashion designer or some other product designer in China racing up. Yeah. Could you give us some example that your favorite brand or your favorite clothes brand?
Sure. Let me have a think. Though first of all, let me just also just comment a little bit further. I agree with you. It's like especially in fashion, and part of my research actually has just been more like it's not been the main focus, but it's just I've been aggregating all, like making a list of all the designers I've come across, and really also in our discussion today, basically we also like had the idea to add a timeline to that basically list. And what you see actually is that basically in the last 10 years there's been an explosion of let's say independent Chinese fashion designers, especially in the last 5 years. So that's even like that it's accelerating, let's say, the amount of kind of people starting up their own brand and kind of getting into doing different things. And that's in part also accelerated by a development, let's say, in platform culture. So a lot of designers also flock to a platform like Taobao to basically engage in direct sales and direct communication with customers rather than going with stores, etc. While that said, at the same time, there's also a proliferation of stores actually selling different, like really a select shop. So they really like curate the designers that they want to sell. That said, and I agree, I mean, it's in the perception outside of China, there's still very much like, oh, it's not that good, it's a lot of copying, and people don't really know that much, I think. And well, I mean, it has also been slowly getting better in, I think, especially in the field of fashion, as designers have been able to leverage different platforms around the world in, let's say, Paris Fashion Week, London Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, etc. And so they're also gaining a little bit more visibility and recognition. It's really hard to list a favorite brand, actually. That's really difficult. But I don't know, I have, it's more like admiration for different people that I've seen kind of develop that, or like people that I know maybe, or that I don't know, it's a variety of things. And what I just showed, actually, like a brand like or like a label, which is really like, it's totally over the top, this window sense like stuff, which is not really what I naturally gravitate to. But I actually, within the context of my research, I really find it fascinating, and I think it's a really interesting story. And he also, in some of his, like in some interviews, etc., he's talked also about the difficulty he had. He's actually studied in Belgium, in Antwerp, which is, I know a really difficult school, let's say, to enter, to go through. Yeah, so I mean, he talked about that and the difficulties he's faced. And anyway, it was very interesting to kind of read that development and see the work that comes out of that. Another brand I like a lot, and actually this little pin is for them, is Fix Studios, which is actually,
Yeah, it's really cute.
I had a
Cute polo shirt.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. They're a label that's actually a little bit mixed, but they identify as Chinese designers. It's founded by a duo, Fiona Lau and Kane Picken, and they're actually both originally Australian. She's Australian Chinese. I'm not sure his ethnic background, but he's Australian. And they, since I forget when the brand was founded, but for many years, basically founded their brand in China and developed it in China, first in Shenzhen, or now in Shanghai. And then another one, I guess, wait, give me a moment. I can bring out some clothes behind me.
Brilliant. Thank you.
This is a t-shirt I recently got, which I really like.
Oh, wow. Pixel.
Yeah, I thought about wearing that, like Pixel people. Yes,
Is
Pixel people.
Is that the leaders of the countries?
It's anonymous people, I think.
Anonymous
not
people.
Reader. Oh. Yeah, I think he just sourced them from I don't know where, but it's by Xander Joe, he's actually a menswear designer. This is a menswear t-shirt, but things are really blurring now in terms of gender. And for him, I know him also. And I've been fascinated to see he's actually been around quite a long time. And he really started out in this really like women's couture, like doing celebrity dresses and stuff, and really actually not very like kind of not that interesting, I would say. Really, I didn't find it that interesting. Mm-hmm. And then he basically started out from there and got a little bit of recognition and I guess some income. And then decided to basically change direction and go for menswear. And then basically slowly started to build up his brand. And now he's really huge, basically, in doing like collaborations with Kappa and everybody, basically, also. I mean, it's very much, so it's like there's the development of these designers, there's development of technology. And then there's also, of course, that's the big pull for everyone. And actually even foreign, let's say, brands. It's much more brands than maybe designers coming into China. But the market is something that's really there and that's been growing and emerging. And the desire to, let's say, consume things of of a certain aesthetic value, and people curating their own style and this kind of thing. So all of this kind of leads has like had an effect on everybody's practice, let's say, in that way.
Yeah, it's super interesting to see like the brand from really the young Chinese, like because I really can feel the culture inside them. Especially you were talking about every brand have their own story. Because like for me, I'm trying my research topic is also a little bit related to branding, because branding to me is it's more like can be experimental storytelling or cultural phenomenon representing. So because it's very exciting to see like now age, because China is in a very special economic acceleration or technology acceleration situations. Is like the speed and everything everything people wanted, just but they just wanted directly, like timing. Maybe when they search some clothes on Taobao, they may just quickly, or how to say, the live streaming on Taobao as well is the live stream people. There's more and more people get into this career, even maybe they don't know how much how's the designer's ideas, but they just try to sell it, or they just, I don't know. I watched a few of the streaming. They trying to push people like quick faster to buy the clothes, but I think it's kind of missed the thing about the story behind, or the designer's background, or the things, the designers things. And then it's quite funny. I looking at a designer that you sent to me, Su Wukou. He's doing very interesting project. I think it's a little bit like an art project. It's related to use the copy as aesthetic. Use Shanzhai to create the product. Is every design is not his design. Can you know? Can you talk more about him? Because I'm really interested.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, so
No, I find him also, yeah, I forgot to mention him just now. I also find him a very interesting character.
Yeah.
Which is really like it in a way. I can't see someone like that emerging somewhere else in that way. I think, I don't know. It's like, so yeah, he has a very broad practice. It started out from fashion and making clothes, but he very much gravitated toward, let's say, street culture, and very kind of accessible fashion, let's say, in that sense. But embedding it with a really kind of conceptual layer, let's say, yeah, everything has this that kind of concept in behind it. That said, he also has like basically created what a lot of these designers actually do then and it's also through utilizing Taobao, having different sub brands. So they kind of set up, so Suwuko has, he has his main brand, I think originally is called Comp, Citizen of No Place. Then he has another side project called They Are, which is more of a little research project, but then it became also a collaboration with Vans. Plus it's a factory that he actually operates.
Yeah,
and
it's super interesting. Like he's using the Vans design, and he just directly say, okay, I'm copy Vans, so what? That attitude make me feel, oh, he's trying to say, to use this kind of the features, the special things in China nowadays, the manufacturing production, to create this kind of representation of this phenomenon.
Yeah. And that besides that, he actually right now is also starting a kind of cultural arts center in Guangzhou called OK Center, where he basically, it's his studio, but it's also like a venue, and there are like music performances and all kinds of activities going on there. So that's another kind of like, he keeps like, this development is just really fast. Also, he goes from this to that, and then also some brands latched on. He's done a lot of actually, so he did this, maybe the fake Vans, but he's also done actually very formal collaborations with Vans. I guess they just, and actually I didn't look into it, but I think he also participated in this kind of reality TV show about designers in China.
Oh, really?
I saw some. Yeah, I looked at like on, I forget, on Douyin or on Weibo, I looked him up and I saw these kind of clips from some sort of, look like a TV show setting. Like, yeah, so.
Oh,
That's interesting.
yeah, it's quite interesting to look if the such a interesting designer in a TV show, because it's
Yeah.
quite interesting. Because the thing is, he's just say, okay, I copy Vance, but at the same time, Vance feel nice for this, and Vance
Yeah.
want to collaborate with him, and how he do that? He's like, yeah, it's kind of very tricky to see this action, because this is also very interesting to reflect me to think about the Western and the relationship, maybe the relationship between the Western brand and Chinese brand, because somehow the Western brand try to engage, like get more commercial things or opportunity in China. But the other, so even maybe Vans think, all right, there's a person, just copy my things. Maybe it's good to collaborate with him.
I mean, it's part of like there's a proliferation again, like, so, and as I was mentioning, in part there's this like boom of emerging young independent Chinese designers in fashion, but even I think also in other disciplines. With the brands, it's so in part, so you have foreign Western brands. It can be Vans, it can be Nike, it can be Kappa. They're very well known also among the Chinese consumers, and have a like big brand recognition. The pull for everyone in this basically is this consumer base, let's say the Chinese growing consumption drive. And so everybody wants a piece of that pie. And so I mean, the strategy is very much, we need to localize in some way. How can we do that? Oh, we need to let's work with the local designer. Oh, we want that talent, that talent, that talent. That also then basically they bring in their own like following and their own kind of, their own world. So that basically, you benefit. But I mean, the collaboration model is something that's been also kind of like booming around the world more and more. But yeah, you see it really in terms of the Western brands coming in. Although a lot of those brands in China, they have their own like Chinese operating team, and they work in a very, let's say, localized local way. But yeah, they really seek a lot of these kind of collaborations and crossovers. And that another major one that was kind of interesting to see was what I mentioned, Xander Joe plus Kappa just launched like I think a week or 2 weeks ago. And then there's also basically, it was launched through a live stream that you then go into, and then it's like in drop mode, basically it's sold in a drop format. So like there's the first drop, the second drop, etc.
Yeah, it's quite funny to see. Like I remember last time you mentioned about actually last year, 2020 is the first virtual fashion week of Shanghai. Is
Yes.
it? They trying to have the first virtual show.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's well, trying. Let's say it was a pragmatic move. They actually, so Shanghai Fashion Week before that, maybe around 2019 or earlier, I think, already started a strategic collaboration with Tmall, and maybe did a little bit of streaming or something, like really on the side and just testing as a part of Fashion Week, where it was really kind of very, very minimal. And then basically, so it was 2020, it was March, the fall winter Fashion Week is in March in Shanghai. And so it was the height of the COVID pandemic in China. And so basically they couldn't host the event. I mean, venues were closed, they were not allowed to gather. So basically, very quickly, and I'm not sure if the kind of seed was at the Shanghai Fashion Week or probably at Tmall, they were like, yeah, let's go online. Let's live stream the whole Fashion Week. So that was really kind of, in part, I mean, the good thing or the easy thing about it was that the infrastructure was already totally in place. Like designers had Tmall accounts already, and the Shanghai Fashion Week had a Tmall account, and other like incubators like Labelhood also had a Tmall account or a store basically. And so through these accounts or the platform, they could very easily live stream also because the technology was in place from Tmall, etc. So like, whereas maybe in the West, it was a little bit of a harder, difficult step because a lot of these fashion weeks plus the platforms didn't have that kind of technology or that kind of format in place before the pandemic hit. So Shanghai Fashion Week decided to stream everything online. And the funny thing is, it's also a point I'll look into in my research, is that you have basically this development that was forced basically by the COVID-19 pandemic. And then you look at it a year later, and it's been used in a very different way. I'll go into that in a minute. But basically, last year it was actually really. I mean, I was a viewer because I was also curious about this phenomenon and what was going on. So basically, you just go into your Taobao app, and then you search for what you need, the designer you're looking for, the platform basically where they're streaming from. And it was really kind of funny, interesting mix, because all these designers had also never done live streaming. And so there was a lot of kind of very creative things. There were like little skits, and then there was like behind the scenes of a fashion shoot. And then there was like a band for some of the shows. It was really kind of fun. But that said, the viewership was okay. I mean, it was pretty high. It wasn't like crazy. And then, of course, the idea is through this format to sell. Basically, you have a button in the screen while like you're watching, and you can buy what you're watching. But the sales were really actually not that good either. Basically, it was really an experiment. The positive thing that I found from this experiment was that you actually had a really kind of interesting content. Fast forward 1 year later, they kind of formalized this format as a really kind of strong element within the Shanghai Fashion Week, while at the same time they are still doing an offline fashion week in reality. But the online component became a kind of very more prominent element in the fashion week. And so for this year, there were actually 3 events that were live streamed. So the opening of Shanghai Fashion Week, was basically a lot of like little interviews and the key people. And then there was a mix of designers on show. And there was basically it was a live event. So some people went to, offline as well, were there, but basically online you can catch kind of a glimpse into this, let's say, exclusive world. And then the other 2 events were with like these major live streamers. One is Austin Lee and the other is Via Huang. And the Austin Lee one is actually interesting because a lot of the designers then that were doing their own live streams last year, some of them participated then now in the Austin Lee live stream. And that's basically, Austin Lee is this kind of huge live stream persona that basically, he got famous selling lipstick, and he has a huge following, and he sells basically a lot of products every day and garnering huge basically profit for Taobao and Tmall. And so what they did then was allow him to present the designers and really kind of go into the live stream room and try to sell those garments in a very different way. That's basically using the standard live streaming format, which is, in a way, you could relate it to, let's say, an auction. So it's really like it's not a bidding, but there's only the very short moment where you have that link, where you have the discount, etc. So it kind of pressures you into buying. And so basically this time they had a really high viewership. Plus I think they made about 10 million yuan in income from that show, which is kind of crazy anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of wow. Cause you said because I think it's generally show the situation now, how people buying things like in China, especially not just in fashion but other product. There's the people which name in Mandarin 主播带货. They trying to they have 100 million followers, and then it's easy to let people get addicted into their performance on the live stream, to having the clothes they're wearing. Yes, it's kind of funny thing because for me I do really enjoy like physically in the fashion show like in the runway that the designer and the environment the whole decoration and music make the whole show more solid for me probably. But it's quite interesting. You said this year Shanghai Fashion Week they are trying to just well some live streamer to performing something. So do you have any do you feel any different from the physical runway or the sellers on the Taobao live stream? Do you feel more fun for the Taobao live stream or rather than you you think the runway? So just compared.
Sure, yeah. Of course, there's a big difference, I think. And just to kind of explain maybe, so that live stream event included several designers that were then part of a kind of a collective runway show in the live stream, which I agree, it's not like, it was really more, the whole event was, let's say, functional for the purpose of selling fast and a lot. And then, while at the same time, there was still an offline fashion week where these designers, the same designers, actually also had shows. So really with the like the music and the choreography and the whole setting and the staging. Another like and an interesting aspect because I mean, as part of the research, I was there and I went to at least like quite a few shows. My focus, and that's an interesting, I'm not sure if you know about it, Lang.
Yeah.
Part of my research also goes into a platform called, they're really like an agent or an incubator, talent scout. I mean, there are a lot. They're called Labelhood.
Yeah.
They're also a store.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
I
so
probably saw probably saw it on the Instagram. Is that there's a do you have
possible.
it?
Yeah. I think so.
They
Yeah.
do some designers sample sale. Or, sorry, I'm not.
They do a lot.
All
They do
right.
huge. I mean, they're kind of interesting as a case. So I'm also looking into what they do. They do a lot of different things. But one thing that they do in Fashion Week is really provide and organize the platform for the emerging designers to do their shows.
Okay.
And they basically, I mean, it's through an open call in a way, and they have a jury behind that open call. And so basically, I mean, as the Fashion Week on its own, for Shanghai Fashion Week, I think it's in a way relatively democratic in that sense and how they've set it up. But anyway, so they provide that platform. And so this live stream collaboration with Li Jiaqi was Austin Li.
Li
Was
Jiaqi. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of
That's who I'm
the
talking.
richest KOL in China.
Yeah. But so he was the guy doing this live stream.
wow.
Austin is his English name. Yeah, it was Austin Li. So Austin is his English name, but Li Jiaqi is Chinese name. Anyway, so that live stream that he basically made 10 million for these designers and for himself, I guess also.
Wow.
That was organized by Labelhood or with Labelhood. Basically, he wanted to work with Chinese designers. He went to find Labelhood. But Labelhood, so what they also do, and going back to the offline fashion show, which I also found fascinating, and I haven't seen that at other fashion weeks in the world. What they organize, basically, they get each designer to do 2 shows. And the one show is for the professionals, etc. And the other show is really for like fashion-loving public, which there is, of course, a lot of growing public in Shanghai, but even around the country. So really a lot of it's full of young kids that flock there that really want to see these shows and really get engaged with this designer's work. It's, in a way, it's quite accessible if you're a member of Labelhood, like they're in their store in Taobao, you can find, or on their WeChat, I think, you can access tickets to the show, basically. So Well, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon that I haven't seen any, let's say, model like this before. But basically, they started out as a store, and they still are a store, and most of their money comes out of this running the store. But they've adopted this kind of smart model of incubating young designers. And even with some, they basically set up like jointly as a joint venture. They set up a Tmall store, so they have their own labelhood store, and then maybe with one like more better selling designer, they decide to kind of set up a separate store, and basically garnering like profits and income as they go along, but also of course maybe shouldering the risk together. But yeah.
Wow, it's quite funny to see now. The offline store, people still go shopping offline.
Yeah, that's
Some
yeah. I still go shopping offline a lot. I'm old.
I I do really enjoy like offline shopping because you could really touch the product, really you can try physically wearing on your body. But on the other hand, now it's technology trying to more and more convenient for us to see the products or images, and they makes apps that you could try the outfits on the apps from the screen, so you don't have to really go to the store. And I'm just really curious, the founder, like you mentioned, the labor, the founder, they own a store in Beijing.
They started with a store in Beijing, and then yeah, it's a bit of a complex story. Then they opened later in Shanghai. So the main stores, and they have several stores in Shanghai, and the main ones are all in Shanghai. And then let's say the Beijing one, and there's now one in Shenzhen, actually separated from the Shanghai one and also have a different name.
Oh, wow, interesting. They seems to have
Complex.
very big company, and then they trying to follow the economic trend. Like from now, it seems Shanghai more like a commercial.
I mean, it's the fashion
thing.
capital.
Yes,
Yeah, it's the
yes.
fashion capital.
Lots
It's
of
kinda-
lots of young designer graduate from other countries' university. Lots of like study abroad, like St. Martin or Parsons. They coming back, and they will stay in Shanghai to do their design products, the
Yeah.
design stores. But it's bit like, because more and more, like for now I'm following the fashion trend is on Instagram, but how about in China, like how like young people follow this kind of designers trend, like more young designer trend, if they cannot get the VPN? Do they have any special software? I heard about there's a Chinese apps named Redbook 小红书. Is it?
Yeah.
Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a very popular app, specifically also for fashion, actually. From the research, I am actually focusing more on Taobao and Tmall, but Little Red Book is really growing and booming, and
Yeah.
is a big, actually is to Taobao. Yeah, and I mean, a lot of designers and young kids, consumers, look to look to Little Red Book and our users there. And I think there is a kind of tagging mechanism. So in social content, you can tag the different things that you're wearing, etc., and then it links to where you can buy it, basically, which I think is also technology now that they're developing in Instagram. But yeah, their Instagram is behind on Little Red Book in that.
Yeah, because Instagram now
yeah.
is upgrading to like a shopping software now. 'Cause I
Yes,
saw
now
some
following the Chinese model.
I saw some very independent designers, like if you heard about Venice, the New York based Korean Korean designer, Venice W.
Venus W, no.
Yes, Venus W. She's doing lots of like very independent project about the cutting and the now she become more and more famous. But when I follow her, she just probably just 1,000 follower. Now is 13.1K, so she's getting more and more
Okay.
famous.
Well,
So the thing is, on the Instagram, I could see lots like visual, like can see the process, like whole progress of their doing their design. So but in Xiaohongshu, sometimes they I don't know. When I see this word, a little red book, I always relate some very political things, like especially in communism, they always use the red book or red things to teaching people, or I don't know, to occupy some knowledge. So the red book is actually telling the young people the whole new trend of this age of the young designers. So yeah, to compare East and West. Also like your host,
but yeah.
the cosmotech of China, the technology of China now is kind of have the reflection and connection. Yeah. So I think it's a very very nice connection with you, and it's to saw your reading and video, your resources and your ideas and everything. So I think in the future, we should have more sharing and maybe have some interesting collaborations with
Yeah,
both
would
our
be great.
research. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I would be very much up for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anouchka, for today. Your time and your
Thank
your
you.
presentation, everything, and yeah, hope this first podcast experience make you happy.
Yes. Thanks so much. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank
and
you so
it's
much.
been fun chatting. And yeah, I'm curious also what the viewers say. Also, the viewers later on, maybe of the kind of edits that comes out of this. So, yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes, have a good night, and
Yeah.
yes, thank you. Good night in Beijing.
Okay. Bye.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.
Okay, now we are in 9:28 now. So I would like to share my favorite DJ Heartbroken song. So please enjoy the music of Heartbroken. the time now is 9:35, so I would like to share a story from Bruno Driel, Cool for the Summer. So this story will be in Mandarin, and you could see the English text on the screen. Bruno Driel, 凉爽一下 ，Cool for the summer。欢迎来到跨越人、主体和图像的外交桥梁。在这样的桥上，从一个岛屿到另一个岛屿的旅行，将把当地的传统带到邻近的港口，仿佛一餐本土与异国风味结合的创新料理，配上一杯美酒。但桥梁的性质与工程和设计密不可分，它是一种连接性的策略。延伸来说，跨越桥梁进行参与，并决定在何处进出的本质，也是一种设计。告诉我你想要什么，你喜欢什么，没关系，我也有点好奇。图像通过其受众从抽象的坟墓中升起，在设计中找到他们灵魂的媒介。瑟琳娜·戈麦斯将穿上她喜欢的那条裙子，紧身的，把头发梳得很美很美。她的皮肤贴在你的心脏，与你的心跳同步，因为这是她自我设计的义务。美学的表现被当作一个伦理命题，她为你我服务，以这样的方式让我们服务于她。这里有一个简单的，也许在做减法的指令链。对于鲍里斯·格罗伊斯来说，这是现代设计在呼唤末日的当下启示。这末日将揭示一切。对我来说，这意味着靠近健身房男子，远离傻白甜，加入珍妮弗·罗伦斯的战队，放弃安妮·海瑟薇。好莱坞的把戏让珍妮弗打哈欠。正是因为看起来不在乎，他在展示自己伦理维度。珍妮弗继续激励着有身形形象焦虑的新一代年轻女性。彪马和耐克的运动鞋之间，我选择了前者。这意味着什么？在一个完全不想将正能量传递至全球的心境里，我也草拟我自己的伦理维度。一个设计的共犯，偏执狂的受害者。我正在设计我的不可预测性。这野心是禁欲的，马不停蹄的进化，提纯所有被时髦审美品味影响的事物，了解森林歌伐，阅读 eFlex， 对自己密集的健身课程感到厌倦的时尚潮人，已经成为当今社会的常规。因此，我必须从猴子那里索求钻石，向身体崇拜者、准强奸犯007候选人鲍里斯说：“现代主义将尸体的设计替换为了灵魂的设计。”我说：“何必这么丧？”这个月，我都在全球顶尖的模特网站上查阅他们排名前50的男模。大概要浏览3个小时的广告大片。编辑文章：路易斯·维登牧民，杰尼亚银行家，拉夫西蒙斯原住民。杰伊给我看了一个鞋子，是一个加了松高底的假马丁靴，很烂，不行。第二双鞋是带着塑胶坡跟的英国牛津鞋。也不行，我给他发了个链接，一双 Prada 秀场的鞋，一个 Marni 的当季搭配和一件朗文的毛衣，我喜欢贵的。他又发来一个瑞士设计师的作品，一个瑞典背包品牌，一堆无聊的几何图形，把平淡宣扬为一种风格。我喜欢冒险，独特的。杰伊喜欢冒真价实，不过时的基本款。我们都去 Zara 买东西。杰伊穿 cos 很好看，我穿 cos 女装比较好看。这是一个拟像的游戏，拟像的背后是一片空白。但今天的设计是总体的，不需要沉思。 在这个设计取代宗教功能的社会中，自我设计成为了一个信仰。就像每当一个新的购物商场开张的时候，小商铺就会遭殃。店主们抱怨，同时他们的孩子把零用钱都花在了这些商场里，这是惨淡的。资本机器是负能量云云，但我爸花9.99欧元买进了宜家的拉克桌，去掉原包装，然后在自己的店里买15.99欧元，你懂的。在我们所寄居的后视觉文化里，图像不再是生产关系的拜物教式否定，而是生产手段及其他，并不是对空虚的怨念，而是更多有关于形成一种精神唯物主义，以承认这么多文化剩余的非线性本质。既是闪亮的工作原理很重要，但最重要、更关键的是将它重新利用和重新编程，参与变得无所不在，不再是一种义务，而是本能。因此，走过连接不同主体之岛的外交桥梁，人固然的在为图像物表演，且身在其中。带我进入你的天堂，不要害怕，因为我是你的菜。有些事我们都想尝试一下，因为你和我都想要凉爽一下。
ecological urgencies of our
Actually, there are Yanye's curatorial research practice focuses on the construction of failure. A guy who are quite, I'm sure, 20
love. Hi everyone, welcome to the presentation of 01 Love. It is also the theme of 2020 Taipei Digital Art Festival, curated by me, Yanyi Li, and Xiangwen Chen. I'm a digital art curator based in Taipei. My curatorial research focuses on failure, digital waste of DAC. She is also an art critic focused on post-colonialism. Helping people to build related matchmaking and visual-based self-presentation allows us as user to constantly indulge ourselves in the next possible match. Here, the perception of dating and love is slowly shaped into a game. With infinite new choices from data flow are available to us, but we refuse to commit since next one might be better. With more mobile devices available to people, geosocial location social apps are installed, and affective computing technologies are getting more advanced. Are we finding love more easily because technology provides a great numbers of opportunities for us to meet people? Or is the concept of love changing faster due to the development of technology? Here are the index of topics that we will be exploring during this presentation. From how the purpose of providing solution to modern problems entangled with surveillance capitalism technology and how it creates many constraints circulation between virtual capital, third parties, users, platforms, and algorithm. First, we will look at the risk management in love and look at artists' work from research. The geolocating system employed in dating apps turns into a standard filter mechanism, allowing distance and online status to become prerequisite for people's encounters. Such functions let us detect any dateable subjects in proximity. Through software interface, we are capable of monitoring the distance between subjects and ourselves, as well as the usage time of subjects, and vice versa. User expresses their preferences through diverse filters and brief self-intro. Swipe left to reject and right to accept become a solo agency that users keep. The spectrum of gender does not even exist until they are coded as options. In the picture here, artist Vicky wants viewer to experience the user experience in her installations of water bed covered with app design and principles, showing that our carefully calculated online user paths and products are our modern intimate relationship, and these are the coins to buy happiness. Artist Lin Zihuan employs the act of touching and rubbing magical lamp to touch panels as a metaphor, pointing out that principle of love driven by technology eventually returns to individuals' desire for recognition in the world. However, the frequency of having unpleasant online interaction do rise with more people signing up on dating apps as well. We do have more chances to create connections, but also spend more time on meaningless conversations and receiving harassing messages from strangers, while growing numb and wary to ever-increasing choices. In the left picture here, Xu Zehao criticized how our digital function key controls the lives of user instead. Through the power of manipulating character in games, Li Yifan on the picture here, right, discussed what the feedback influence of our highly manipulated digital bodies do to our flesh. Virtual interactions are bringing offline and keep influencing and changing our existence in both spaces. We gain more access to our digital environment and delete unpleasant individuals or things easily. But with more hazard experience happened, users turn to the platform and to look for a more safe dating options. Social profile verification for the virtual self is the solution. Being real is the tickets to virtual dating world. We enter a manipulation of interpersonal interaction on a larger scale. How can we constantly reflect upon the self-definition amidst the total manipulation? Here is a quote from the Technique and Aesthetic of Love in the Age of Big Data. With all the dating platforms offers free dating services while capitalizing and privatizing data sets, our online presence and exchanges are no longer just between you and the others, but an archives of information whose interfaces we may be able to access as users, but the storage of which simultaneously remain opaque and inaccessible. It is simply beyond the reach of user control. These new love archives reminds us that desire is no longer belong only to ourselves, but also databases that stores them. Nowadays, all of our experience are conveyed via these platforms. As such, our experiences are now mediated by these platforms. So thoughts, cognition, and love are no longer the preserve of individual humans, but something can be analyzed, multiplied, and divided. Lauren Lee McCarthy and Kyle McDonald employ the intriguing conceptual variation of man in the middle attack, a tool in the security field that intercepts messages, highlighting the role of a third-party medium in the communication in between. The artist says, we set up a system to man-in-the-middle attack our own relationship. Instead of sending text messages to each other directly, all of our texts are intercepted by a server. On the server, we each other have an automated, scripted representation of ourselves handling the message. They both have the ability to, first, modifying a message as it is being sent or received. 2. Reply to a message instead of modifying or relaying it. 3. Initiate new conversations without any actions from Lauren or Kyle. Through this process, we hope to sync our different communication styles and develop a better relationship and conversation. Exhibited here is the current state of code and excerpt from our conversation with our system. Since love is hard to prove to be true, and its inherent feature is contingency, the data-based matchmaking becomes a love solution that is neutral and reassuring. Meanwhile, we are increasingly haunted by archival uncertainties, such as new forms of errors, new personal information breach, and new forms of surveillance, which becomes potential hazard, such as photos shared onto a cloud accidentally. Now that computer can compute data and process a huge amount of messages we cannot handle, we consider this machine that collects data and establishes objectives analysis extremely reliable. It offers a trustworthy, reasonable solution to us for the randomness and unpredictability encountered in love and relationship. On one hand, we rely on computer to produce results. On the other, we're incapable of understanding them, nor can we read computer languages. The complexity of computer languages has gone beyond our reading and writing abilities, while most people's data are privatized and even sold. Here are artist Joanna Mo's work, Dating Broker, collaborating with Tactical Tech, exposes the real-time auction of dating profiles. Not just the owner of these files are sold without consent, while users have no access at all, but also that we cannot manage things taking places in the process. Nor the variation occurs in the computing process. So let's talk about the image of sex bots. The patriarchal perspective in the society has always been associating female and nature's images and concepts with the roles of care given. The concept of Mother Earth, however, systematically rules out females in cultural production, rights, and political arena, such as selflessness and endless giving by nature and women. So in the age of data, what is the situation now? I will quote from 2 guest speakers from the festival program, Nasty Woman Forum, on algorithm bias towards women. First, from Millie Man in the left picture. In the past, we saw over-sexualized and objectified female image in magazines and commercials. Now we see many women themselves perform self-objectification on Instagram and curate their objectified experience on social media. Through self-branding, objectification become part of their user experience. We also talked about management of social media profile and the rise of dating apps that might result in new forms of date rape. So there's many new forms for one-night stands, such as 骗炮, like about getting into a relationship in order to get sex, while forming a hostile online interacting environment for women. Another remarks from curator of Taipei Contemporary Art Center, Xu Shiyu. In the 90s, what cyborg feminism has visioned as future didn't come. Humans aren't free from their physical constraint. The oppression and discrimination towards women are not just in reality, but also in the one seen as utopia as known as virtual space too. Algorithm bias and the violence of technology creates new issues. Science and technology aren't just and neutral. The road is still long. Keep moving forward. In the picture here, you can see on the public forum, PTT in Taiwan, there's a lot of misogynist comment describing women as female pig for people who are feminist. Non-consensual sexting, cyberstalking, and online harassment and gender-based hate speech, although conducted in the virtual world, share the same gravity with those in reality in their impact to victims, physically and mentally. These trolls hiding behind the screen that usually launch anonymous attacks often employ doctrines, norms, and online harassment in an attempt to prove their hegemony and gender-dominate relationship. The lack of proper law to regulate these harassing behavior online further exacerbates the security and concerns of the minorities. These exist in both reality and virtual community. The feminine image oscillating between two extremes, nature tool, mother whore. In the picture we see artist Krista J. D'Angelo examined how images in popular culture twist the woman of color and strengthen the bias against female traits through the production and visual communication. We have also seen more development of machine men to machine women in literature in recent years. Interestingly, once technology becomes associated with chaos and destruction, the machine becomes female. The ceaseless love scammers are granted with more stages to shine thanks to the expansion of dating apps users. Apart from scamming by real people, there are also automatic malwares and bots, which is software proxy, involved. These dating app bots, disguised under their intoxicating dating profiles, are embedded with malicious applications or advertisements underneath. Through the ambiguous modes fostered beneath false feminine identities, they expose masculine subjects that are relatively stable to an unpredictable realm of obscurity. The mimicry of humans by machines is better each day. From daily conversations and intonation to the ability to think and respond, and to the machine that acts like humans, they are making progress relentlessly. We are creating an ever complicated media that not merely is for us to express our languages, but possesses agency of its own. So what about love? In the conversation between anthropologist Shaka McLaughlin and writer Akisti Ethiopia suggested that people nowadays are loving and not feeling right, for we feel uncertain about ourselves, for which in turn making us afraid of being emotionally attached to others. However, in a society under the structure of capitalism, where our lives are filled with the atmosphere of inadequacy, precarity, microjobbing, uneasiness, exploitation, and endless choices, how are people sturdy enough, physically and mentally, to care for emotion and love? Here I want to show you two artworks that explores affections in the gaming world. Shiraini presents the emotional bonds established in the story and fall in love in an obsolete online game. A relationship happened in a haunted algorithm. Ramboyan attempts to define the experience of love formulated in the world of game via a sense of intimacy generated through avatar in online game. Both works expresses this haunted, ghosted life, lost and wonder feelings on the detachment of physical intimacy and virtual affection. With a filter, criteria, and self-presentation as prerequisite for matchmaking to ensure users' continuous commitment for their attention. The diversity and surprises of love, the uncertainty of falling in love, and the fear of being rejected and protected by game-like interfaces and filter settings. Nonetheless, under the circumstances of our uncertainty in self-acceptance and the poor knowledge of ourselves, we adapt to the universal value of others in choosing a spouse and attempting to demonstrate them, meaning reinforce popular value according to algorithm in the virtual world. Following the ever complex, drastic change of market values, capitals, technologies, and politics are effective exchanges that facilitated through platform economy are charging towards a safe love with risk-free, no hard feelings, no missing out, and no responsibility. The visual we see here are from Vicky Weijie's work, taking Instagram's API of hashtags on love, relationships, and couple, accumulating all user-generated contents and perception into an obscure data sculpture. Artist and scientist Jaden Haston takes it further by applying the selection mechanism on software interface to the field of reproduction. She took on the challenges of gene modification and IVF technologies and modularized genes for people to assemble an ideal perfect sperms freely at an affordable price, calculating for the perfect match amidst the fundamental genetic codes. Intervening by data and technologies, love is no longer an emotional exchange between two parties, where encounters of each other is recommended by algorithms and driven by technologies. Emotional communication between each other is translated and mediated by calculating third parties. Not only software users are required to express themselves within the interface framework provided by the third parties, but also their encounter processes are turned into products, in which the third parties profit from the manipulation of information communicated between the two users. The generation today has been living on the culture of calculated manipulation. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to ask any questions.
Hello, good night, everyone. Now is 10 o'clock. Welcome back to Slacker's Love, represented by Tulan at FoMO Radio. I think tonight we have nice be together to have some reading, sharing, and connecting with Anouchka to share her project. And it's a fabulous night. I really hope everyone enjoyed this performance, this podcast, and also hope you guys has a nice evening with your lover, families, friends, neighbor, and to thinking what is the meaning of love nowadays. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and have a